I've been looking all over for you. We gotta go down to the Bears Only Cafe and talk bearsness. Listen, you know that Bears Necessity contest? We've got problems. So listen, we'll go down, we'll talk business, and hey, everything will be okay. I love this guy.
You know what? The young Keanu Reeves had the potential to star in movies like Billy Madison, or at least to be part of Adam Sandler's group of buddies who made fart jokes. So how did he go from groundbreaking, intellectually challenging films like Bill and Ted to shallow popcorn flicks like The Matrix? And were his earlier roles really good? Or was it just a phase to vary in oblivion? First of all, we need to answer how the young and pacifist John Wick came to acting. Although initially aiming to be part of the Canadian hockey team, he decided on acting at the age of 15. School was not an option either, as he demonstrated early on that it wasn't his forte, even getting expelled from art schools before deciding to leave without graduating. Nonetheless, he continued trying to find a role to break into the acting world. This led him to small plays and musicals like Romeo and Juliet at the Leah Parsons Theatre in North York, Ontario, and Brad Fraser's cult hit Wolf Boy in Toronto. Keanu's face was starting to emerge, and the next step would be television. Like many actors, he did commercials that nobody remembers, and did a brief appearance in the Canadian comedy Hanging In 1984, which, again, nobody remembers.
Hey, where do you keep the towels? Pete said we could use a shower.
Oh, Peter put you in here.
Yeah, you rescued us.
Yes, just those few seconds, but it already showcased the early profile he would later handle in some of his future works, portraying a kind of rebellious but somewhat goofy character, like someone straight out of Ed, Edd and Eddy, far from what he would become later on. Although he made his debut in the short film One Step Away, his true film debut would be Youngblood in 1986. While this movie isn't considered the greatest sports film ever made like LeBron James in Space Jam 2, it holds a special place in hockey circles for its dramatic portrayal of the Canadian junior hockey. The film stars Rob Lowe as Dean Youngblood, a talented scorer who must embrace the brutality of hockey to succeed, alongside Patrick Swayze as his mentor. Notably, the movie also marks Reeves' debut in a feature film, playing Heaver, the goaltender for the Mustangs, a role that suited him well due to his real-life hockey background. Reeves, a lifelong hockey fan who played a goalie in his youth, received criticism for his performance, particularly for his accent.
When that man is an animal.
That same year, an offer appeared that could have accelerated his future as a dog avenger and lifted him from the pit of naive youth. Platoon. This film, a box office success and a cult favorite, featured Chris Taylor, played by the always clean Charlie Sheen. He's a young man who drops out of college to volunteer in war, joining a platoon fighting on the Cambodian border. Oliver Stone, the director, thought this role would be perfect for Keanu Reeves. And just so you get some context, previous contenders included Kyle MacLachlan and Johnny Depp, who was ultimately chosen for the role of Soldier Gator Lerner. However, it seemed that Stone was more obsessed with Keanu than Will Smith was with Jada Pinkett, and he kept insisting until Keanu decided not to participate, stating he didn't want to do violence. But as we all know, it all turned out to be a lie years later. And I know, it sounds ironic looking back now, but I suppose at the time and in the context, it was different for him, and he needed to go through other stages such as his dramatic phase. Going to the 1986 to 1989, Keanu took on roles in films where drama rather than CGI or acrobatics suspended in the air was at the heart of the story. In River's Edge, Keanu portrays Matt, a teenager confronting a moral crisis when his friend John murders his girlfriend. Contrary to the straightforward teen dramas of the era, the film explores themes of guilt and existentialism, and his portrayal of Matt was praised and helped his career in Hollywood, showcasing his ability to tackle complex and emotional charged roles. However, it was not yet the time for our young The One. Before that, he appeared in TV films like Brotherhood of Justice, Act of Vengeance, and Flying, a low-budget romantic comedy. In Dangerous Liaison, it seemed like Keanu Reeves could finally make his breakthrough. He portrayed Chevalier d'Anzeny, a young and naive musician trapped in the 18th century French aristocracy. The film, based on Pierre Choderlos de Laclos' epistolary novel, that I obviously read to make this video, features a cast that you're likely familiar with, including Glenn Close, John Malkovich, and Michelle Pfeiffer. According to director Stephen Frears, Pfeiffer mentioned that Reeves was destined to become a big star. Was young Keanu destined to win a Golden Globe for drama? Well, not exactly. In fact, his path would take a strange but lucrative turn towards comedy. In January 1981, Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon met in UCLA dramaturgy class and formed a friendship based on absurd humor. During this time, instead of studying hard for their exams, they decided to do something more responsible and created a stand-up comedy routine about two friends studying history, Bill and Ted. Inspired by Chris' father, Richard Matheson, who suggested making a full movie about the characters, they spent 7 days at a cafe in Lake Tahoe, writing a detailed outline, and then 4 days at a Los Angeles cafe creating the first draft of the script for the movie initially titled Bill and Ted's Time Van, later changed to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, because the concept of the time van resembled too much to the DeLorean from Back to the Future. De Laurentiis Entertainment Group would produce the film, with Stephen Herek chosen as the director who began casting for the duo. Stephen Herek conducted an extensive selection process involving between 200 and 300 actors, at least for the main roles in the film, asking them to audition for both Ted and Bill. Among those considered for the role of Ted were Pauly Shore and Gary Riley, while Matt Adler, River Phoenix, and Sean Penn, among others, auditioned for Bill.
He's got shorts and a jacket. We're like riffing on. It's like the whole thing is literally there on day one.
It was meant to be.
Keanu Reeves quickly impressed Herek as Ted, leading to the search for a suitable partner for him, given that Steven Seagal was already losing his hair for the role and his acting was too perfect. Alex Winter, who auditioned alongside Reeves, ultimately landed the role of Bill. The great chemistry between these during auditions secured them the roles.
Excellent!
The film, released in 1989, grossed $40.4 million domestically, on a budget of $10 million, which was quite good, and even spawned a sequel in 1991. This film would serve Keanu much more, finally making him known in Hollywood, albeit for a comedic character. In the following years, Keanu would continue in this comedy line with productions like I Love You to Death and Tune In Tomorrow in 1990. However, despite the fame the genre was bringing him, he decided once again to try drama with My Own Private Idaho, which would be deeply remembered by Keanu due to his involvement with his great friend River Phoenix.
What's your most lasting memory from making this movie? River Phoenix.
1991 would be the year that Keanu finally made the leap that would change him forever, Point Break. This was a project from 1986 that was revived in 1991 by James Cameron as a producer and Catherine Bigelow, who was then his wife, as director. Actors like Willem Dafoe, Johnny Depp, and Val Kilmer were considered for the role of protagonist, Johnny Utah, but Bigelow was clear in her preference. She chose Keanu Reeves as the lead and fought with the studio to accept the 26-year-old actor in the principal role. She even went as far as threatening to resign from directing the film if she couldn't hire him. Reeves would ultimately become Johnny Utah, an FBI agent who infiltrates a gang of surfing thieves led by Buddy, played by Patrick Swayze. So the lesson of the day is, only sing for someone if you're going to threaten people to achieve your goal. The film not only stood out for its impressive action sequences, such as the surfing and skydiving scenes, but also for its distinctive cinematic approach that captured the beauty and adrenaline of these extreme activities. Despite initially moderate box office success, Point Break later gained a growing status as a classic in action cinema. More importantly, the film prevented Reeves from being part of the movie Grown Ups in the future, clearing the path to success for Shaq. From here, Reeves would soar even higher in films like Speed, The Matrix Saga, and more recently the John Wick franchise. Far from his quirky teenage image of the 80s, which, although quite peculiar, also managed to conquer Hollywood.